Hi friends, I am so excited to introduce you to this new series called Pretty Naked, where I am sitting down with some of my closest friends and family. The first guest I'm bringing on is one of my best friends. Her name is Desiree Williams. She's currently competing on the challenge right now on CBS, and she's on the show. She's doing fantastic. She also was a former Miss Virginia, and I met her at the Miss America pageant when we competed together 10 years ago. So we talk about everything that's happened to us in these past 10 years. There's some high moments, low moments. I do want to issue a trigger warning. We do talk about suicide and mental health in this episode, so please care for your mental health and safety. But that said, there's also a lot of interesting moments along the way where we talk about her survivor days, burning off leg hair, just all crazy things we've done in the name of beauty and how we are reconciling with that as women who are in the beauty game. And I hope this gives you a peek into my friendships that I'm so proud of. I really use the word friend carefully, especially nowadays, in the past couple years, and I'm so proud to say that Desi is one of my closest friends, and I love her, and I can't wait for all of you to meet her. We are coming up on our 10-year mark of meeting.
That's crazy.
Because isn't it? We met in 2013. I remember first meeting you, and we all saw each other's headshots when we were competing. And I was like, oh my gosh, your headshot looks like Beyonce, which I told you. And it definitely still does. I was just like, I just want to be friends with her because she seems really cool. And I came up to you and I was like, hey, do you want to drink wine before we go to this pageant? Which, by the way, in pageant world is obviously a huge no-no. So you were like, yes, let's do it.
Everybody's so past that now that they're like, what's the big deal about wine?
Yeah,
but it was you had to pretend like you didn't drink or do anything remotely faux pas.
Yeah. Well, I remember one of the girls was like, oh my gosh, me and my boyfriend just go to the club and we'll just have water. And I was like, that's a really weird thing to say. Just say you go to the club. You don't have to reference alcohol.
Right. We don't even have to talk about what you drink there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the culture. But you were really chill. And obviously 10 years later, oh my goodness, we've been on a journey.
Yeah. Life has changed a lot. I can't believe it's been 10 years. And also at that point, I was so new to pageants that
you were.
Yeah, I really had no idea what I was doing. I didn't grow up in a family that really wore makeup. My mom's school is everything.
Really?
Academics. And then I'll take you to your sports practices.
What was your first memory of beauty? Or when were you aware that it existed?
Oh, I mean, I was always aware of beauty. But I guess I never felt like beauty was my thing. Do you know what I mean? I certainly grew up with girls who straighten their hair every day and put on makeup to go to high school.
That was me.
Really? Every
Oh my
day?
God. Are you kidding? I literally, since 7th grade, I would iron my hair. I would sneak downstairs and iron my hair because my mom wouldn't buy us a flat iron. And my sister and I would iron each other's hair every Sunday night and wear it for the week and then do it again every Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, hair was more important. Hair is just a big thing in the Black community, period. And I'm sure we'll talk about that more later. But I always knew beauty was a thing because everybody else was doing beauty. But beauty just wasn't my thing. You know what I mean? Because I feel I grew up in a predominantly white high school, elementary school, middle school. So it was I was never going to be there beautiful.
So what was your first memory of recognizing that you were not that? You weren't what their definition of beauty was?
I'd say my first memory of that would probably be 4th grade, where everybody was getting boyfriends and having crushes. And I had a huge crush on this boy who lived around the corner from me. We were also in the same 4th grade class. We rode the same school bus. Huge crush. But I was invisible to him. But he had crushes on other girls. So it was in that 4th, 5th grade moment where everybody was starting to like each other, and literally no one was even checking for me.
But then what did you do with that feeling? Do you feel that's kind of what threw you more into the sports and academics, or were you recognized in other ways growing up in that community?
I feel I was recognized in other ways. I mean, I literally I would be either the only Black girl in my class or somebody's mom would call when they put out the school list at the beginning of the year and be like, we need to put all the Black kids together. So there'd be 3 Black people in one 4th grade class as opposed to one in each 4th grade class. There were so few of us. But yeah, I just kind of dove into academics. And I was I know this is something I can be good at. And it doesn't, I'm in control of this narrative. So yeah, I just became like a total academic overachiever.
And I mean, you definitely achieved. You are crushing education by all, intensive definitions of it. When did you actually realize, look in the mirror and be like, I'm actually beautiful. Like people think I'm attractive.
I think it was actually like a really kind of negative shift in middle school. They bring a couple of elementary schools together. So now you're with more kids and there are more kids who look like me. And it was almost to the point where like, I mean, I was kind of like, I don't want to call myself a slut. Like I wasn't I mean, like middle school standards, but I would like make out with my boyfriend in the hallway. Like I was like tongue make out with my boyfriend in the hall. Like I was just became like really fast is what we called it.
Yeah.
Because I realized guys do like me, but then there was also something in the back of my head that was like, I still have like acne and my teeth aren't straight. And so like maybe I need to like be a little more risque sexually to make sure that this guy stays interested in me instead of the girl next to me who has perfect skin and great teeth. So it was like kind of that middle school era where I realized that I could have power with looks, but also it kind of took a turn for the worse, I think.
What was the turn for the worse in terms of
I just mean
the
with being like
risky side?
Yeah, the risky side. I just remember like getting called into the assistant principal's office for like making out with my boyfriend in the hallway and being mortified.
Wait, they called you in to talk to you about it?
Yeah.
What was that conversation?
We've noted like so she was also my assistant principal was black, so she was also I think just like looking out for me, and she was basically just
Sure.
like, you can't keep tongue kissing your boyfriend in the hallway. Like you are 12 years old and this is inappropriate behavior and we don't want to involve your parents. And that's basically all it took. And I was like, yeah, my mom definitely can't.
You're like, I'm out.
Great. Don't worry about it. We'll break up tomorrow.
And then what happened in high school?
I do feel like by high school, I felt some semblance. I don't feel like I'm the pinnacle of beauty in this school, but I feel like, and this is awful, but like amongst the black girls, I think I might be among the prettiest.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like a catch-22 because it's such like a white Anglo-Saxon vision of beauty. Like we always got our hair done, so I could straighten my hair, and then I'd have straight hair like the white girls. And there were other girls who didn't straighten their hair. They didn't have like as manageable hair as me. So I feel like in high school I was able to sort of distinguish myself, but it was based upon just like basically white standards of beauty that I was able to more easily morph myself into, like being thin and having straight hair, and I got braces so that I had straight teeth. I was able to like more easily morph into that vision of beauty than the other girls.
I guess as far as pageants, when did you realize, okay, like beauty is a means to actually get what I want? Beauty is power.
So like I said, I grew up going to predominantly white schools, elementary, middle, high, and then I made the decision in college to go to an HBCU. So it was a school full of black people, and I was just like one amongst like thousands of beautiful, intelligent, driven black women. So I just kind of became like one and the same as everybody else, which I think was good for me because it made me realize that like I am not a unicorn. So like it was certainly a humbling experience.
I think you're a unicorn.
Well, thank you. I mean, we all think we're unicorns in our heads.
Yeah.
But I like growing up, I would literally hear the comment like, "Oh, you don't talk like the other black girls," or like, "Your hair is so much prettier than the other black girls." You know, like from people who aren't black, obviously. So I would hear these comments, and I started to think that like, oh, maybe I am special. Maybe it is just me. And then I get to the school where it's full of people who are just like me, and I'm like, okay, another basic bitch. It's fine. But the pageants didn't really emerge out of beauty necessarily. But when I visited Hampton as a senior in high school, I went with my grandmother. It was the weekend of the Miss Hampton pageant. And I just like flippantly told my grandma, like, Grandma, if I come to Hampton, I'm going to be Miss Hampton University. Not thinking I was going to go to Hampton because I wanted to go to University of Georgia like everybody else at my high school wanted to do. So when I ended up at Hampton, it was actually my grandmother who like brought that conversation up 3 years later and was like, "Hey, aren't you supposed to compete in a pageant?"
Wait, but why did you actually say it? Like, did you actually say it because it was like, I'm going to say this as a joke to test it and see the response I get? Or was there something actually in you when you think about it that you were like attracted to it?
I mean, I still think, I think there was like the competitive aspect. I think like in retrospect, it's like validation of your beauty, right? Like,
yeah,
I think I'm great and talented and smart. But unless somebody else is agreeing with me by putting a crown on my head and allowing me to wear a sash, like, am I really, or am I just one amongst?
Oh my God, that's such a like mind like It makes me so sad thinking about these because that's what we all believed for so long, right? It's
Mhm.
like, I think pageants are the ultimate form of like someone else validating
Oh,
you when you're not really doing it
1,000%.
yourself. Yeah.
1,000%. And I mean, I had people in my lives who would tell me that. They're like, "Pageants are not good for your psyche. Like, you should not be doing pageants. They're messing up your brain." And I'd be like, "What do you mean? Like, I'm really good at them. Like,
Yeah.
why would I not do them?" But in retrospect, like, yeah, I was looking for validation, and even for years after that, I was still looking for validation. Like, probably even Jeremy, who's my fiance now, when we first started dating, I'd be like, "Why don't you tell me I'm beautiful more?
Stop
Why don't
it.
you call me?" Yeah, I mean, but it was just like I was so used to being like externally validated for everything.
I'm
Yeah,
saying stop it because I did the same thing.
yeah. Oh, okay.
I started
Obviously.
dating Ryan. I was like, obviously other people tell me I'm beautiful, but like I want to hear it from you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And it was like a thing for a long time. And every time he'd like huff and he'd be like, "I don't understand why I have to. I told you you were beautiful earlier this week. You want me to tell you you're beautiful every day?" And he'd be like,
hey.
"Kind of. Is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
Am I
I
not?
don't
Am I not beautiful every day?" So yeah, I think it really did like screw up my head that I just need to hear somebody else say it. Like I can look in the mirror and I can feel good about myself. If I don't hear somebody else say it, it's just like, am I making this all up in my head?
Yeah. Well, now that we're here, how do you work through that? I feel like one thing people should know about you is that ever since I've met you, you've actually always walked your talk in terms of health. Like you have truly called out the eating disorders in pageants. You've always said, even at Miss America, you were like, I am not about to fuck up my metabolism for a stupid pageant. Like
Yeah,
I'm going to
really.
eat what you want. And you obviously you had such a healthy body and like but I think that also came with your mindset and your mind was healthy. You were mentally healthy to be able to recognize that. Whereas I certainly was not. I remember thinking like, I have fucked up my metabolism and I hope it's worth it. Like, like
And it
it's
all worked out for you. I'm just kidding.
but
Yeah, no.
right, at what cost?
Yeah.
Um and so I remember thinking that so vividly when you made that comment. I was like, I sure as hell did not even think about that of like what this long term would do to me. And so I appreciate you for saying that from the beginning. I think specifically with Survivor, it was not surprising to me that you would do it because you were never the person that was like, "Oh, I cannot go out without makeup." Whereas so many other women pageant girls are and like you were really confident about that, like knowing you going to Survivor was like I was like this is so Desi, like she would crush this. But like what was it like in the pageant community or just in general hearing when you're like Miss Virginia what they assume of you?
I mean, even like as someone who goes out the house without makeup, I'm not going out the house and going on national television without makeup. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also Survivor is such a unique experience. And I talk to people about this all the time who are like, I could never do Survivor. But it's a gift and a curse because there's such strong group think on a show like Survivor, where
Mhm.
it's like everybody's sleeping outside and they're okay with it. I guess I'm sleeping outside and I'm okay with it.
Mhm.
Nobody has looked in the mirror for 20 days. I guess I'm okay not looking in the mirror for 20 days. Like, so you kind of get caught in this like new society where like there are brand new rules and you can't be the only person who's like, hello, like I'm uncomfortable. Like, why is nobody else uncomfortable? So you kind of forget that you could potentially look like shit
Yeah.
until it started to air. And that's when I got fearful. I was like,
Mm.
because you don't look in a mirror. Like there's no mirror. There's no way to know how you look at any given time. And you're on camera 24 hours a day. So that was scary. Like you're vulnerable in a different way because I don't know what's going to be shown. I can't even remember half the things I said because I was starving.
Mhm.
And by the way, like I haven't combed my hair in 20 days or brushed my teeth or like all of the daily, like basic hygiene things. I will say I'm fortunate that like I ended up looking pretty good on Survivor, but I think it's just like you're eating organic and you're drinking a ton of water and you're doing like all the things that like everybody tells you to do every day that we don't do. You're not drinking alcohol. You're not like eating candy bars and junk food, but it really does strip you down to like being at least like visually the most raw version of yourself. Like we have hair under our armpits by the end because you don't have razor blades.
I mean, obviously, Survivor strips you down to like primal human instincts. And so I totally see where the group think comes into play. But I think it's really interesting because you kind of are really separating your appearance because in that survivor society, if we want to call it that, like, that's not what matters, right? What actually matters in that society to survive. And that was kind of more of who the person is. I mean, sure, there's physicality elements too, but like, what do you think that was?
And so it depends, I think, on your game. So I actually went into Survivor thinking that I'd be able to like use my beauty and sexuality to help further my position in the game. And just based upon the cast, I was like, there was nobody really here I can flirt with to like make that work for me. So yes and no. Like I went into Survivor fully thinking that like I'd be able to lead with like good looks and a body and just like that'll take me to the end of the game. And obviously that wasn't the
Yeah.
case. Um, you just kind of have to navigate that world. And it is another world where beauty can be power or like it also could hurt you in the game because it, traditionally women don't like other women and that, there was some of that I felt like was at play in the game as well.
So what would you say was like the most power in Survivor, and specifically with your class?
Oh, I mean, for me, I would say it was just like my physical competitiveness was definitely and I think I don't like ruffle that many feathers. I'm pretty chill and easygoing. I don't need the camera to be on me at all times. So I could kind of like be under the radar. But people who do well in the game of Survivor are just like, they're really strategic people. They're always thinking 10 steps ahead. Like,
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my head around like how these people's minds work. But they're like 10 steps ahead in the game. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get through today. Like, I'm going to go stand on the beach because we have nothing else to do. And they're literally thinking about like what they're going to do in 5 days to try to get to the end and who's going to vote for them. I can't even describe it because I literally don't understand how their brain works.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I was like, tell me everything when you got off of Survivor, obviously. But tell me about like your body hair situation because you told me a story about like burning off your leg hairs.
Yeah, I guess that shows you just how powerful, like, yeah, your looks are. So obviously on Survivor, your hair starts to grow back because we're all humans. And they didn't give us our swimsuits until like day 14 or something like that. So we're basically like living in the same outfit. And then on day 14, they're like, oh, here's a bikini you can wear. And I'm like, I haven't shaved my bikini line in 2 weeks. So like, I can't wear this bikini. So we literally sat around the fire and like
Wait,
lit
did
little
you
like,
even think of that? Sorry, did you even think of that like going into it?
yes.
You
But
did.
what can, I mean, yeah, yeah. I thought
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Okay.
But I also typically on Survivor, like they used to give you your swimsuit at the beginning. So I was like, well, I'll be able to wear a swimsuit for 2 weeks and then wear a swimsuit. But they kind of like flipped it and gave it to us too late. And obviously as women, we have been programmed to think that like we cannot have an ounce of body hair showing or else we are going to be wholly unattractive. And not to mention like, hi, this is going to be on national TV. So we literally sat around the fire. I think there were like 3 or 4 of us. I can't remember what we were lighting on fire, but we were trying to burn off our bikini hair with like literal fire to our crotch, all in the name of like literally just
In the
trying
name of
not to have-
beauty.
in the name of beauty because we're on national television, everybody's going to see our pubic hair.
But I think that's because there is this connection of beauty being connected with shame. You're teased, you're bullied in middle school if you haven't shaved your arms, like if you have hairy legs. Like it is also something that society has created of like, this is so taboo.
Yeah.
And
I can remember like stealing my mom's razor in 5th grade and like going into the bathroom and trying to shave my legs and obviously cutting myself 10,000 times and then trying to like thinking I could just like sneak back and put the razor back in my mom's bathroom, like, and she wouldn't notice. It was so stupid. But yeah, literally from the age of 10, I had been programmed to think that like I cannot have body hair or else every male I see is going to think I'm gross. Like not just like unattractive, like they're literally going to think I'm gross. So here I am like 27 burning body hair.
What happened? Did it work?
I mean, it kind of works, but eventually we got to the point where we were like, the risk of this is not
working.
The benefit. Yeah. So we're just going to like stand in unity together and we'll all have pubes visible on national television together.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really it. Like, that's the entire point of this is that if we collectively reject a standard, that's how we actually uncondition ourselves. But there has to be some solidarity around this, or at least conversation of like, why do we keep doing this to ourselves?
And who's going to be the first one to like say it and do it and like test it out, so to speak, to see if people are repulsed or if they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, of course you have body hair because you're human.
I mean, you know me, I've had my journey over the past like 3 years of like kind of thinking about beauty and like my relation to it and my mental health around it. I just keep coming back to like I've played the game, you've played the game, right? Like theoretically we have won this game. We are deemed attractive, beautiful women by society standards. But because even though like I did get my validation from society saying that I'm beautiful, like there was still something missing inside me that I couldn't quite understand why I was feeling so lost or sad. Depression aside, like it was just kind of like, there's more to me than this. Like this can't be all. This can't be it. Like this isn't what life is about. With my TED Talk and calling it out, there was a part of me that was like, I do have this privilege of, you know, being able to say this, but how will it come off to others when we are sitting here and talking about, you know, beauty standards? And I still feed into them, right? Like we're wearing makeup right now, which I feel like I've totally forgot to start taking it off.
It's never too late. We can start.
Yeah, we can start taking it off. But do you know what I mean? Like, did you ever have that?
I mean, circling back to like, yeah, we won the beauty thing, but to your point, like at what cost? So the person who I was when I was winning pageants was also like 25 pounds thinner and like would have never been seen in public wearing like my naturally curly hair without my edges perfectly laid. I think that's what I struggle with the most is the me that won in beauty was not really like me. Do you know what I mean? It was like me having been augmented in all these ways to then be considered beautiful, not necessarily like I woke up like this and now I've won a beauty pageant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think still in my head, it like, yeah, I won those things and it was great, but I also had a full face of makeup on every day for years. And I ruined my curl pattern and I'm still like trying to get my curl pattern back. So while we've won at beauty, I still feel like that person was not totally me. And that's why it's still hard to like grapple with accepting me fully being okay in my most naked form. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Going back to Survivor, like when you did have to accept that in your most naked form, like do you remember where you were mentally just not thinking about how you were looking? Because like what was that headspace like just to not even care?
It's so freeing. It's so freeing. Because it's just like none of us know what we look like. And none of us, like you get to a point where you like literally don't even think about it. I remember watching it back and we did this challenge. We were like all in the sand all day. And for like the next 2 days, my face was like covered in sand. And I was like,
I remember that.
Yeah. I'm like, why did nobody tell me to wipe my face? But it just because like nobody told me. It just kind of becomes like a background thought. It's like, yeah, we're all in this together. I guess it's also a point where like the way you benefit me in this game has nothing to do with the way you look. So I'm not even worried about that. So I think that's what we need to lean into more is like, what am I bringing to society that is not attached to my external beauty? Because what is our external beauty really bringing to society anyway? It's only bringing stuff to us. It's not doing anything good for anybody else. And I think we just have to remember that like our value in society literally is not linked to our beauty.
It might be empowering for you temporarily, for the individual temporarily, but that doesn't empower the collective when we talk about the standards that come with it. And you're literally saying only one person is this definition that fits in this box, and that's what it must be. You were also on the challenge. And so the reality TV space has been interesting since I think the time you were also on Survivor to the challenge, because there's been sort of this like social media component that I think has been introduced later on in your journey. And so talk about like the difference between Survivor and the challenge in terms of like how it was physically. Was your physical appearance more important?
I knew it would be more important going into the challenge just because I've seen like the MTV flagship version of the show. And traditionally, like the people on the challenge are attractive people. So I was like, all right, I'm going to have to like put on some makeup, I guess. But I was not prepared for like the level of beauty and commitment to makeup in the house. So I'm now like, I'm 33. I'm not putting on makeup every day. Like to your point, like I'm not ruining my metabolism to win a pageant. Like I'm also not like ruining my skin for this television show. But then I realized that everybody else was putting on makeup every single day. And they're like, Desi, we're going to be on TV. I'm like, I know, but like, we're going to do this every day. I literally was like, can't we just all band together and not put on makeup? And they're like, respectfully, Desi, like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, we've been on TV before and we're going to put on makeup because we're on
I love
TV.
that. I love that you said that though. Oh my gosh, I'm going to cry because I do have friends that are like-minded.
I was just like,
Like
we can just decide to not do it. And if we all do it together, it won't be weird. Like, we'll be like every other person in America who's sitting at home right now on the couch
watching it
without makeup on. And unfortunately, nobody wanted to go down that journey with me.
So what did you end up doing?
Even on challenge days, we're going to get thrown in water or we're going to sweat all day long. Like, we put on makeup. And everybody else is putting on makeup. I'm not going to be the one girl on TV who's like, hey, I didn't know I was going to be on national television. So, like, I didn't want to look like a clown. So I put on makeup. Like, and that's circling back the power of group think, where it's like, I knew inherently this is not something that I felt like we needed to do or should be doing. But if everybody else is doing it,
you're going to do it.
I'm going to do it too, because I'm not going to be the one oddball not doing it, which obviously was different from Survivor, where you don't have the option to wear makeup. So you have no choice but to band together and not. And
I feel like that was like when influencers and social media was really at its peak. I guess influencers are now more a household name. You know, if you're going to look at watch an influencer, they're going to push a product. That's what you're expecting, right? That's what their job is. But I think before it was kind of this blurred line of like, no, this person's like just someone I really like. She's cool. Like, I just want to hang out with and see what they're doing. And you didn't recognize the, commercial capitalist side of what Instagram was really doing. I wonder like how much of the challenge was kind of also people who were more in the social media influencer space of like knowing that like this is their image and this is their brand and upholding that, versus I feel like you didn't necessarily have that pressure on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's actually a really good point to point out, because on Survivor, we were all just like normal humans. We're going to come do this show for 6 weeks, and then we're going to go back home, and I'm going to go be a physical therapist or a professor, and you're going to go be an actuary. Like, we just went back to our normal desk jobs. Whereas on the challenge, like, these people, for the most part, are literally trying to make a career out of that. So I guess I still forgot that. And I guess that's why what their images on TV is so much more important to them, is because it is their career and they're trying to make it their full-time career. And I'm like, we're just here for 6 weeks and then I'm going back home to be a PT. Do you know what I mean? So it does certainly shift, I think, the mindset. I just tend to forget other people's mindset because I'm like, oh, we don't all have to work all day long every day. Yeah, they just get to be influencers full-time and go on reality TV full-time, and more power to them.
I mean, I've been open. Like I had to step away from it because I can't mentally handle the idea, like just the idea of you are defined by your following to companies and brands and corporate America. That is all they will look at, is just fundamentally, I cannot be a part of that game. But how has it been for you with that?
It's a tough fence to sit on, because on one hand, it's like, their life does seem so glamorous. Physical therapy is not glamorous in any way, shape, or form, but it pays my bills. And then I'm looking at them and they're like, oh, sorry, I didn't see your text message. I slept until 11 today. And they're like going to lunch at 2. And then they're shooting content from like 4 to 6. And like, that's their day. Do you know what I mean? So there's part of me that's like, that lifestyle seems so amazing that who wouldn't want to be an influencer? But then there's the other part that it's like, but do you want to like sell your soul or push a product that you don't believe in? I don't fault anybody for doing what they do as an influencer, but it's certainly a tough game to play. But I think it's similar to corporate America, where you just like kind of have to separate your job from, unfortunately, like your true values and beliefs. Like, this is your job and this is your separate personal life. And I think you have to separate the two. But it is hard when you know that there are kids at home like looking through their social media on their phone who don't realize that this is literally a job, and you should they also should be separating in their head who the person is as a person versus who they are in their job. I mean, I think that there's been more attention on that, and that I'm grateful for, but it's a scary kind of place to be in.
Balance. The question I've been asking myself lately and thinking about is that obviously this next generation, the kids who grew up with TikTok and Instagram and are constantly on it. And there is this idea of like, you know what, I'm a smart, independent. I know what I'm feeding into, and I'm going to just put that where it is, and I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to get paid, and that's going to be it. But to what degree are you actually separating it? As humans, can we actually do that? Is a big question. And then, just like the ideal version with like fillers and plastic surgery of what women are supposed to look like has changed drastically in the past 10 years? Are we almost in some ways killing the female genius because these young girls aren't able to actually think for themselves to become what they're meant to become because of what they're inundated by, even more so than we ever were? Because it's one thing to see a celebrity, you know, on TV and magazines, right? That's toxic in itself too, in some ways, in many ways. But it's another thing when you see everyone, when you see literally like your friend next door who wants to be an influencer, the person across the street in your school, like someone's TikTok famous, right? It's just like, what are we doing? How will this next generation turn out? And it's almost unfair to them because they are kind of this guinea pig generation that we're not going to find out the effects that it's really had on them until probably 20, 30 years later, truly.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's like a blessing and a curse because they also like have more access to so much more information. And I also have heard the perspective that like those kids who are maybe ostracized or like they feel like they're the only person in their school who's like really into anime or really into this like super niche something, like they can find someone online who they connect with. So I think in that way, it's like a blessing and a curse. We were the guinea pigs for like the World Wide Web, and it's kind of exploded into this greater thing. So I do feel like every generation has like something that they're the guinea pig of. I don't know what the solution is. Like, I certainly think we're harming them. We see it every day. Like, depression rates have gone up, suicide rates have gone up. It has to be linked to something. Do you know what I mean?
It's the groupthink. And I really do believe like the more we have these conversations and the more we can collectively really think about what this is doing to us, that will hopefully the next season of the challenge or whatever group or whatever society you're in, right? Like more people will opt to say, no, I don't need to physically put on makeup or like look a certain way. And that doesn't define me at earlier stages in life. But if that will happen in our lifetime, I'm not sure.
I know. And unfortunately, I feel like it's only getting worse. Like, I literally went to dinner with two friends, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. We were just talking about like skincare, blah, blah, blah. And they started talking about BOTOX. And I was like, oh, I haven't ever had BOTOX. And they were like, oh my God, Desi, do you know how old you are? They were like, you need to start like like literally like stopped the entire conversation to try to convince me to get BOTOX. And then I thought to myself, like, do
no,
but also like it was something that I've never really considered. I'm like, I'm just going to use skincare. And like when I age because we're human and so we age. But literally stop the conversation. And I think that's where we are too, where it's like nobody wants a natural progression of life to just happen. Like everybody goes through an awkward period in middle school. It's fine. We all make it out alive. You get better in middle school. You gain some weight when you go to college. Like it's just like the natural progression of life. And then when you're 40, you have wrinkles. Like that's just what happens. And I just feel like we're at a point where like nobody wants life to happen the way it naturally happens. Like nature is nature, and we just have to let nature occur. I think that's the bigger issue. Like the more technology we get, the more ways around the natural progression of life we have, like the more people just want to stay forever young and link their identity to being young forever.
I mean, absolutely. Honestly, it takes more energy and effort for me to actively reject Botox and fillers and like lip injections than it would be to do it. Does that make sense? Like it is easier for me to go out and do it because there are parts of me that want to do it. I'm like, yeah, I want to see what I look like. Like maybe like everyone else is like loving themselves.
Exactly.
Like you like
everybody's
what am I missing?
I'm just overlining. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so like it's so much harder to mentally reject that idea and image, especially when I see the ads or like, hey, like 20% off lip fillers, like, especially in New York with like pop-up and LA, obviously too, like there's just like pop-up places you can go into. Like this doesn't have to be even a dermatologist anymore. It's just so easily accessible. And the mental space, the headspace it's taken up for me is too much.
It's not you. It's like society has made it so that is at the forefront of our brain. Because like capitalism is our society. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's push a product and they'll buy more of it. If we tell them they're ugly, if they don't do it, they're going to keep doing it. And that's where we are. Like skincare, beauty, hair care, like it's all the top selling industries because it gets into our psyche of like what's most important to us, which is how we're perceived by others.
Yeah.
When going back to it, like that is literally not our contribution to society. It's a scary world we live in, but I feel like the more we have these conversations, the more like people will be open to changing and accepting and realizing that like beauty comes in all shapes and forms. Outward beauty is not the end all be all. And we can see that like erupting day after day after day.
What do you feel like beauty has cost you the most?
Ugh, I don't know. I mean, time, money, like certainly I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to be my most beautiful for sure. But I think especially in my time competing in pageants, it really cost me like quality time with friends and family. Like I remember turning down invitations to things or not spending time with my friends because I felt like I needed to be in the gym for longer or I felt like I needed to take a makeup lesson so that my makeup was always perfect or straighten my hair. Like I just remember opting out of so many experiences and opportunities in the name of like trying to be the thinnest or the prettiest or like all of those things. So I think that's what it's cost me the most is just quality time with friends that I will never get back.
It's a lot of our youth. Obviously, life gets more difficult as you get older with responsibilities. And like at a time we're meant to like explore and figure out what we want to do. We're putting energy into things that aren't necessarily the most important.
Yeah. We literally not wasted. No. Like they were great opportunities, great experiences.
I know what
Obviously,
you mean.
we're not like complaining about winning pageants. Like obviously it was
Yeah.
a great experience. But I also hear like, especially my friends because I really started competing truly in grad school, but they'll talk
Yeah.
about like memories of things they did together. And they'd be like, "Oh, Desi, I thought you were there too." I'm like, no, I probably
You're like,
we
no, I
make
was
up
at
lesson
home
across
like
town.
miserable.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. I was probably like boiling some broccoli to eat for dinner. Like that's where I was when you guys were having your fun, per usual.
This is a tough question for me to answer, but like, do you think you would compete again knowing what you know? Like if you take out, we were all meant to do it for a reason and it's a part of our journey, but like kind of looking back of like, this is what it's going to cost me mentally.
If I could have gotten the same experiences and not have competed, I would. Like I wouldn't trade competing for the world for a few things. Like one, friendships I've made, obviously, like literally lifelong friendships. I would have never gone on Survivor because I was recruited for Survivor. They literally found me on the Miss USA website, and that's how I ended up on that show. And that's just transformed my life. I now live in Los Angeles. I was living in Virginia at the time. So for that alone, I wouldn't trade the experience. But would I encourage someone else to do it? If their sole goal is to win a pageant, I would say no. Because I don't think that being your main goal is healthy. It's great networking, great experiences, great opportunities, but certainly we've all kind of paid the mental price in the after effects. And I think all of us kind of suffer from body dysmorphia. All of us think we're still not perfect enough. We're all pinching skin because we also have all been 30 pounds lighter.
There's been times where I'm just like, am I the only one screaming this at the top of my lungs? Maybe at this point I am.
It's like saying the quiet parts out loud. It's the things that everybody's thinking, but just like who's going to be the one to say it? And more importantly, I think, and even I'm guilty of this, like walking the walk is much harder than talking the talk. So I feel all these ways, but I'm also going to like, if somebody wants to pay me to post their product tomorrow, like I will probably accept because it's the society we live in and it's a way to make money. So I think that's the harder part is walking the walk. And I'll be the first to say that like I'm guilty of it.
I know we didn't get a chance to talk about this, Desi, and we don't have to if you're not comfortable, but with Cheslie, who was a former Miss USA and committed suicide just this past year, like that hits home so hard, like for so many of us. And I didn't know Cheslie, but obviously when you're in pageant world, like you feel connected to everyone in some way. And the fact that for all intensive purposes, she had it all and was doing the thing and still had this incredible amount of pressure. But people talked about it for a month, maybe two. And then now, where does that leave us? I don't know. I've said this is an epidemic. Is it a public health crisis? At what point do we call it that?
You were actually with me, Nina, when I found out about the passing of like one of my dearest, best friends. And I remember having conversations, and I don't know that it was necessarily ruled a suicide, but it was an overdose. So like to me, it's kind of one and the same. But I just remember having conversation with her where she was just like, everybody else is like buying houses and they're getting married and everybody's life is so perfect. And she was just like,
Yeah.
and I'm working so hard and I'm trying so hard and I just like can't get these things that everybody else is getting. Do you know what? And ultimately, like now
Mhm.
she is no longer here with us. And part of me still like goes back to that comparison. And I think for me, I always have that in the back of my head where I'm like, am I showing too much of the good and not enough of like the normal everyday? Because we all have normal everyday. We're just not posting it. We're just not like when we're sad, we're not posting it. When we're at home crying, we're not posting that. And like it's not like it's kind of weird to post it. Like I don't want to bring somebody's day down, but I think it's just having the conversation, reminding people that social media is not real life. And like I cannot
Yeah.
drive that home to people enough. Social media is not real life. We are only posting the pretty parts. None of us are posting the ugly. And I think that's a conversation that needs to be had with kids very early on. That like this is a form of it is like television. Television is fake. These are scripted stories, and so is social media. And I think that's ultimately like the conversation because we're not going to get rid of it. It's here. It's a monster that's here to stay. So we've got to learn to cope with it in a way that is healthy and makes sense. So I think it's just reminding people that we are only posting highlight reels. Do not compare yourself to this because it's not realistic. And that's something that I think about a lot. And I go back and forth like, do I want to stop doing social media? Like, is that what ultimately led to my friend passing away? But at the same time, somebody else is going to post. Do you know what I mean? So I think
Mhm.
it's just reminding people that it's not real life as many
Yeah.
times as we can. And everybody has a filter on of some sort, whether it's a filter of a smile or an actual physical Instagram filter. Everything
Mhm.
we're posting is being filtered.
That's so powerful, Desi. So powerful. And I think that's the first time I've actually really heard it. And you're right, I was with you and hearing you say it, and it's the first time that I've actually felt maybe it is as simple as just posting the other side of it. And it's not simple, I get it too, but it's something that we can all do more of. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. I'm emotional. I'm like, thank you
I
so
know I was trying
much,
not to cry.
Desi.
I'm like,
Like,
I don't want to cry, but
no. But this is like part of it. I hope that we can just help someone with the conversation.
and I guess in closing, like Jeremy says this all the time, this quote, and I used to hate it, but now it's something that like repeats in my head over and over again. Is comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh,
And every time I bring something up, he's like, comparison's the thief of joy. It just like rolls off of his tongue. And I used to like be like, shh, shut up, Jeremy. But now it's like it's so true. Comparison is the thief of joy. So just stop. Just stop the comparison. We're all
I
we're all on our own journey.
I knew I liked Jeremy when I
Yeah,
met him.
I know. I know. He's a great guy. Yeah.
I'm
No,
so excited.
he's like legitimately a great guy. But
He
that's
really is.
like that's such wisdom that I needed to hear, and I say it in my head at least once a day.
I can't wait to like see you guys for your wedding and your engagement and your bachelorette and all the things.
It's gonna be fun.
Oh, thank you again. I'm gonna hit stop. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share this episode, and join the conversation in the comments below.